Should Microsoft extend support for Windows 10? Here are my personal thoughts. Microsoft has made it very clear to us that Windows 10, as an operating system, will reach its end of life on the 14th of October, 2025, 10 years and almost 3 months after Windows 10's initial release. Windows 10 has become the most popular version of Windows to date. It is used by over 70% of the world's population. The rest of the percentage is made up by those on older versions of Windows, as well as users of Mac OS, Linux, and other systems. Windows 10 initially gained critics and had some negative connotations surrounding it, but people got used to Microsoft shoving dirty data collection tactics into their system, so it was not so concerning, except for those who are concerned about their privacy. They usually move to Linux because some distributions specifically aim at privacy. I have already explained a bit on this in many videos, so we'll leave that topic right there. But back to the end of support for Windows 10, should Microsoft extend support for it? Yes, 100%, because for one, too many people are still using it, and I do not see that huge 70% all of a sudden dropping quickly even at the beginning of 2025. It will take a long time for people to accept and upgrade to the latest system, but this is very cost prohibitive for some people. It's also expensive for businesses, and let's face it, the business market is the majority of those users on Windows 10, consumers making up a tiny percent of it, and the rest use other versions such as 11. 8.1, 7, even XP and Vista cling on in some parts of the world, such as in Armenia, but Windows 10 is dominant pretty much everywhere. Doesn't matter whether we're looking at America, Australia, India, Sweden, the UK, even Cuba runs Windows 10. That goes to show you that Windows 10 really stands bold in the player of desktop operating systems. It has huge dominance that seems undefeatable, and largely, I would like to think that it is somewhat undefeatable, because for starters, it really is on too many systems, so ending support too soon could lead to a massive amount of PCs being thrown out and ending up in landfill. In fact, this has raised so much concern that the Public Interest Research Group, PIGR, is currently holding a petition for people to sign, and here is the official quote from the site, saying this. Dear Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, don't junk millions of computers. Microsoft's decision to end support for Windows 10 could cause the single biggest jump in junk computers ever, and make it impossible for Microsoft to hit their sustainability goals. The new version of their operating system's stringent hardware requirements could result in 40% of PCs in use being left behind. Microsoft's decision to stop supporting millions of functional computers in our hospitals, businesses, and homes is a raw deal for customers who expect their expensive devices to last. All software reaches a point at which it's no longer supported, but when the consequences to our environment are this large, we shouldn't accept it. I largely agree with the last paragraph, saying that if the end of support for software is so great that it affects our environment, we shall not accept it. That's definitely something I would have to agree with 100%. I assume many of you would also agree with what this says, and personally, I think Microsoft needs to pull their act together and give Windows 10 at the very least an extra 2 years until it goes end of life. The only other version of Windows in years past that had many users was XP, and even 7 to some extent, running on close to 40% of PCs before going end of life. But 10 has hit all-time high for Microsoft Windows market share in the entire history of Windows, so this raises massive concern about how many PCs will end up being thrown away just because some big fat rich company decided to kill off their most popular version of their operating system, and they push you and force you to give your money away to get the not-so-latest and greatest, but rather, the most substandard piece of crap quality garbage you have ever been fed on your computer. That's right. Windows 11, the ultimate disaster of Windows, bugged and plagued with issues. It's already gotten itself well into the bad category of Windows releases. The 14th of October of 2025 is coming closer and closer as each day passes. We shall inevitably see the day Microsoft kill off Windows 10 for good, and as sad as this is, It is the reality of all software. Like living creatures, it has a finite lifespan, except that lifespan is controllable and can be extended with little effort, and Microsoft should seriously consider extending support for Windows 10, because leaving that many users stranded is utterly disgraceful and incredibly rude and disrespectful. You'll lose your dominance if you do that. It's an incredibly bad business move if you ask me. What they should do is consider those who rely on it and cannot upgrade for whatever reason, but unfortunately, Microsoft will keep shoving their users onto the latest and greatest version of Windows, and Windows 12 is just around the corner. You wait and see. Many will not be able to upgrade because the days of upgrading for free are over for good. Microsoft ensures that, so many will stick with 10, until it goes end of life, but like Windows 7, XP, and even Vista, some users will cling on to a particular system, whether that's due to costs of upgrading, or some software not working on newer versions of Windows. There always seems to be a small number of people on the older version. It's just that with Windows 10, I think that percentage will be in the high 20s to the mid-30s about 1 year after Windows 10 goes end of life, possibly even higher. It takes a significantly long time for both home users and businesses to upgrade. Whether it's general stubbornness, or the fact of being cost prohibitive is enough to put people off. But either way, those users will suffer with great security flaws, and experience the worst amount of this in history, as so many people will be vulnerable to the latest and greatest threats and security flaws. How's that, Microsoft? Leaving almost 3/4 of your users on an outdated unsupported system? I think that's incredibly inhumane and disrespectful. You're going to push people away from your system, your dominance could come to an end, things will go south if we see the deadline too soon for Windows 10. It's a real fiasco I predict most certainly will happen, as Microsoft are not in the slightest bit concerned about it, or at least have not mentioned anything about extending support for it. So people on Windows 10 will have to keep their eyes peeled so they can see when the actual deadline of Windows 10 is. Stay informed so you know what's happening around October 2025. Should Microsoft extend Windows 10 support in your opinion? Let us all know what you think down in the comments section below. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. See you next video. Bye for now.